Yeah.
My name is Melvin Sturm. I grew up in East Tennessee, went to the University of Tennessee, and while there was very fortunate to have a friend named Milton Shaw. Milton later was significant in power development in nuclear, and he was a year ahead of me, but because he co-opted longer in mechanical engineering than I did, the war came along and he started a year before me, but we both graduated in the class of 1944 with degrees in mechanical engineering. Milton went on after World War II to get a master's in engineering at Penn State. And I received a mechanical engineering degree and went from there into the Navy. World War II, had duty aboard a battleship in the Pacific, had the good fortune to be present at the surrender of the Japanese aboard the Missouri in 1945. After the Navy, I worked in engineering for 3 years in Chicago, but then due to family unfortunate incident, my father lost his life in an auto accident after opening a business in the small town of Jellicoe, Tennessee. In January, the accident occurred in April, and I'm one of 4 sons, and I was the one most able to take a leave of absence from what I was doing. Came to Tennessee, thought I would go back to engineering, but it was harder than I anticipated to close up a going business. Ended up staying in retailing, and after marrying in 1945, I moved my bride to Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And why Oak Ridge, Tennessee? We considered a number of places that one might settle. I said, I'd like to live in Oak Ridge because of the mix of the population. In that era, this is 1955, Oak Ridge had 1,100 PhDs in this small town of 30,000. And it turned out to be a wonderful decision because Oak Ridge was a wonderful environment in which to do business, a wonderful environment in which to raise a family, had outstanding medical facilities, had outstanding schools, etc. Anyway, Milton came back into my life after the World War II when while in the Navy and after the war was over, Milton was in Tokyo and Yokosuka Naval Base and came upon many subs that the Japanese had developed. And he ended up getting one back to the Naval Research Center in Annapolis, Maryland. And after the war, and after finishing his education, he was active at the Research Center, Naval Research Center. In that capacity, he came in contact with Admiral Rickover. Rickover recruited him to be head of a division in his research project to develop nuclear propulsion for submarines and for ships. And of course, we were living apart in that era. Our closeness at the university kept us in touch with each other. And I ended up being best man at his wedding and had a 2 weeks tour of duty in the Navy Reserve at the Research Center and in Annapolis. Fast forward now to 1955 when I lived in Oak Ridge, and I was a retailer. I opened a business in what was then the brand new downtown shopping center. And Oak Ridge being the open community that it was, I had the pleasure of being involved not only with the retail world that I was involved in, but I also was able to be involved with part of the scientific community. And And through that activity met Alvin Weinberg. Oak Ridge was very democratic. There wasn't a hierarchy like there exists in many communities, where you at this level or this level or this level, and those levels don't mix. In Oak Ridge, town and gown did mix, and and Fran loved to play tennis, and Alvin loved to play tennis. I was a neophyte, but we played tennis together, doubles mostly. I had some single matches with Alvin, and he was a very gracious opponent. If you happened to accidentally get a good shot, he would praise you no end, and it would turn your head so much that the next 6 shots that you made were lousy.
That's great.
I remember once we played at the, we frequently played at the Oak Ridge Country Club tennis facility, but we also played at the Cedar Bluff facility in Knoxville, and we had foursomes. So I got to know Alvin. I did sit in on one interview assisting when Stan Arbach for B'nai B'rith did a video interview of Alvin. And I don't know if that interview, I know it exists, but whether it exists among the papers that you have, Sandy, but you might, they may be still at the Jewish Congregation of Oak Ridge storage room.
And talk a little bit about Weinberg's piano playing.
Alvin, as most Oak Ridgers, were very modest in their needs. In spite of their position, they lived modestly. There was almost a reverse snobbery of who had the oldest car. And when it came Alvin's 80th birthday, his wife said to him, "Alvin, that car that you drive, it's got to be replaced. And for your 80th birthday, I want to give you a new BMW." And Alvin's reply was, "If you're going to spend that much money, I would rather have a Steinway Grand." And sure enough, Alvin didn't get the BMW, he got the Steinway. And I can remember, and Alvin he was quite a talented musician. I remember that he would have coffee concerts where he would play informally for a modest audience. And his Christmas parties at home, Alvin was Jewish, and as such, Christmas was a major holiday, but not in Judaism. But I can remember that at his Christmas parties, he would sit down at the piano, and several of the guests there would gather around, and they would sing Christmas carols.